1966 Dodge A100 pickup, forward control. The 1960s were somewhere between interesting and just plain wild. The Cultural Revolution was in full swing, and while many old thoughts and ideals were under attack, the automobile was still very much a part of our personal identity. By 1966 both the Vietnam War and the muscle car wars were in full swing. Drag racing was in its heyday and the van craze was underway. Yes, there was a lot going on, and having lived through it all I can tell you there was a frenzy of hot rod activity too. Everything from scroll-painted vans to street-going gassers, wicked muscle cars, and vintage trucks filled drive-ins across the country. It was crazy. Ford and Chevrolet had entered the compact van market in 1961 with their own versions of the cabover design to compete with Volkswagen. So while Dodge was a bit late to the dance, when they introduced the A100 series of compact vans and pickups in 1964 they were well received. Standard power for the A100 was the venerable slant 6, but one of the big innovations for Dodge was the option of V8 power in a compact van or pickup. While roughly two-thirds of the trucks were six-cylinder models, the V8 was a popular option. In 1966 there were 35,190 A100 trucks equipped with the six-cylinder motor, while 9,536 opted for the 273 cubic inch V-8, making an original V8 A100 a fairly rare animal. When you factor in the fact that these trucks had to work, and often work hard, the survival rate is dramatically lower. Of course the most famous V-8 powered A100 of all time was the wheel-standing exhibition racer the Little Red Wagon, with Bill Maverick taking the forward control to a whole new level. Seeing any A100 at a show is interesting, but finding one as nice as the 1966 A100 that Tim Kinslow brought to the NSRA Street Rod Nationals is a real treat. Tim has been a Mopar man his entire life. His dad worked at the Dodge assembly plant, so Tim understands just how much Dodge trucks have done for his family over the years. While he has restored some Mopar muscle cars, this A100 would arrive in his garage the easy way he purchased the truck, pretty much as you see it here. The Krieger wheels were added to give it a period-correct look, and some minor mods, repairs, and detailing were done to improve the package. The truck was an original V8 truck sold in California, and by all indications, it must have led a pretty pampered life. The 273 cubic inch V8 that was installed at the factory is long gone, and in its place is a 360 Mopar crate motor. Indy's cylinder head warmed the motor over to produce 400 horsepower. That power is passed back through a 727 automatic tranny with a 2400 stall converter. Mopar dress-up items lend a performance look, and an Edelbrock air breather feeds the potent 360. And from there it was basically a restoration. Even the tropical turquoise and white are the original colors, repainted using a single-stage DuPont urethane. While the bed of the truck appears to have flawless metal, it was sprayed with a black bedliner, and Tim uses the truck to haul his vintage Rupp go-kart. The suspension and brakes have been restored to original factory specs with drum brakes on all four corners and a solid axle front and rear. The in-dash shifter is still in service, as is the original gauge cluster that is showing just over 84,000 miles, and we would suspect those are accurate original miles. A dash-mounted tachometer is the only real giveaway that something special lurks under the engine cover between the seats. Speaking of the engine cover, a keen eye will tell you that even the original factory engine insulation is in perfect condition on this truck. Tim was tempted to install more efficient modern insulation products, but couldn't bring himself to remove that flawless factory original material. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information about who did the work on this truck, as the A100 had passed through several hands before Tim Kinslow bought the truck last year. But one thing is certain, you don't see many Dodge A100 trucks around, and we can honestly say we've never seen one any better than the truck gracing these pages. Traditional hot rods in the mountains. The Pasadena Roadster Club plans a rally. After a 14-year hiatus, the esteemed Reliability Run returned to Pasadena, California, in the spirit of the first edition held in 1947. On Sunday, April 28, 2024, it looked like 1950 all over again. Everywhere you looked, there were hot rods honoring not only our hobby's early days, but also the first editions of the Reliability Run hosted by the Pasadena Roadster Club PRC. Participants then jumped in their cars and hit the scenic mountain roads of Southern California, using a route on picturesque Angeles Crest Highway. The route was nearly identical to the one enjoyed by their forefathers 75 years earlier. It was a glorious day. Before digging into the driving event's details, we need to study how it all came about. The origins of the PRC can be traced back to 1945 when a group of young lads got together to celebrate the joy of hot rodding. Besides social activities, members entered car shows and dry lakes time trials that were held in the desert a few hours north of Los Angeles. The first reliability run took place 2 years later, welcoming roadsters, roadster pickups, Phaetons, touring cars, cabriolets, and modifieds. One of the run's aims was to improve the hot rodders' image and stay at peace with local law enforcement at a time when the community associated these cars and their owners with nuisance and danger. Even Hot Rod magazine took notice of the PRC's efforts, covering the fourth reliability run on December 3, 1950. Hot Rod's February, 1951 cover subsequently featured the event, proclaiming speed isn't everything. The cover shot was complemented by a 3-page article. These early reliability runs started and ended at Pasadena's famous Rose Bowl Stadium, with the goal of maintaining specific average speeds between checkpoints. To tame the most zealous drivers, organizers also set secret speed traps. The fun lasted until 1951, when the Pasadena Roadster Club became inactive. In 2002, 7 hot rodders decided to revive the PRC, following in the footsteps of the original members and thereby restricting participation to factory-bodied, 1936 and earlier topless vehicles. Engine and other major mechanical choices were limited to components of 1953 or earlier. 2 years later, the club recreated the reliability run using the same concept as the events hosted after World War II. This 6th edition of the get-together gathered about 60 traditionally styled hot rods, with special consideration given to historically significant cars. This revival affair continued quite regularly until 2010, which marked its 11th edition. For a range of reasons, Reliability Run 12 did not take place until this year, but, boy, was it worth the wait. Hot rodders met at the Elks Lodge in Pasadena, located on Colorado Boulevard, which is the home of the famed Pasadena Rose Parade. The PRC did a fine job organizing the reliability run under the leadership of current club president David Steele, who also happens to be the American Hot Rod Foundation director. The event gave participants the chance to travel back in time using nearly the same automobiles, technology, and roads as the first PRC members. This feat was achieved in large part by accepting only cars that followed the 1950 reliability run parameters: traditional 1936 and older roadsters, roadster pickups, Phaetons and cabriolets, as well as closed cars, coupes, sedans, etc., all employing 1954 or older components and styling. As was done decades ago, the 90-plus mile drive traveled through the scenic mountains of the Angeles National Forest, with 3 checkpoints set along the way. More than 70 drivers joined the festivities, successfully testing the reliability